And we're following that Fox News alert because massive protests in London right now at the start of the G-20 summit. But we do want to go to the pundit pit this morning as we keep an eye on the situation overseas. Peter Schiff, former economic advisor to the Ron Paul presidential campaign, Amity Shlaes, senior fellow for the Council on Foreign Relations, and author of The Forgotten Man, A New History of the Great Depression, and Dan Gerstein, columnist for Forbes magazine. Thanks for sitting around for the pundit pit here, guys, while we were talking about what's going on in London. I want to continue that conversation here. Interesting press conference this morning between Prime Minister Gordon Brown and President Barack Obama. Actually, Dan, President Obama got a couple tough questions right off the bat. What do you think about the relationship there and the fact that France and Germany may not be on board with this whole thing?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it was very important that Gordon Brown stepped up and defended the president. I think that he's very committed to preserving the special nature of that relationship and not letting some of this, chirping about, there was a supposed snub at the White House, undermine what is really the big focus here, which is trying to deal with the global problems. In terms of France and Germany, I would say this. I'm much more concerned about the threat to free trade. And I think the pressure that's growing in a lot of the European countries in particular to put up protectionist walls, to respond to this by saying, you know what, we don't want part of this global economy, I think could be very, very dangerous.
Yeah, but Peter, Germany specifically is saying, look, we just can't keep printing money. We're not going along with this plan.
No, they're not. In fact, the reality is President Obama is actually in Europe, hat in hand, trying to convince the world to keep lending America money so we don't have to print quite as much. But hopefully the world will have the good sense to stop lending us money, because the solution to the problems is not to lend America more money. And the last thing America needs at this point is to go deeper into debt, especially since we take that money that we borrow from the rest of the world and we use it for the bailouts, we use it for the stimulus, we use it to expand our government. All of this is undermining our economy and making the fundamental problems worse.
Yeah, but if they don't loan it to us, I see a huge catastrophe with a capital C happening. Amity, thoughts?
Oh, there's an eerie parallel here. There was another London monetary conference. It wasn't G20, it was G-Fiasco in 1933 when President Roosevelt came in, and you saw Gordon Brown today evoking Roosevelt, hope and all, New Deal. And at that one, there was the same tension. Europe wanted a little bit tighter, and the U.S. wanted spend, 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 because our farmers were going bankrupt, foreclosing, losing their farms. In this instance, the Germans are right. We are inflating way more than Roosevelt ever did in the longer run. We should listen to them. This is not just about spending money. It's about establishing the format for growth, and we're not getting enough of that from the White House. We're just hearing money, money, money.
Okay. I want to move on to Kathleen Sebelius, because here we have another nominee from the Obama administration for a secretary post. She has tax problems. I mean, who doesn't have tax problems at this point? Dan?
Well, I got to think we step back and have a little perspective here. Look at the details of what happened. It was because she went back and reviewed things very, very closely and found there wasn't exact documentation for some of this stuff. $7,000, very small potatoes. Very different than the Tom Daschle situation. This will blow over. It is a non-issue.
Amity?
Well, this is just more and more evidence for the flat tax campaign of the next presidential election for Steve Forbes, for you and I sometimes work, and everyone else. You just can't get into government anymore if you have a family business, if you're a two-job couple. It's too complicated, your taxes, to withstand.
Well, why not just abolish it completely? Well, how about a flat tax of zero? Why don't we shrink government and maybe have a much smaller national sales tax? It's far less destructive to our economy, and people don't have to surrender their individual rights or their privacy in order to comply with the tax law.
Either that, or if you ever have any aspirations to be in any government office, better scrub your taxes right now. All right, Pundit Pitsters, thanks so much for joining me this morning when we have breaking news in the situation in London. I appreciate it. Do you have a question about your mortgage? Well, Fox